ballistic missiles are our national deterrence. This was in September 2023. As we saw in 2024, Operation True Promise and True Promise 2, the Iranians, set ballistic missiles as their deterrent. And they're doing it right now. People say, well, what kind of deterrence did they have, Scott? The Israelis attacked. Well, the key to deterrence is making everybody understand that if you initiate an action, you're going to pay a disproportionate price. I think Israel's come up to that conclusion already. I don't believe Israel would have started what they started had they known what was going to happen. They believed that they could do decapitation, shock and awe, and Iran would collapse. What they're finding is the Iranians have a plan, and it's a heck of a good plan. The Iranians built ballistic missile capabilities that are the best in the world. What the Iranians are coming in right now is you're seeing a gradual increase in the technological sophistication of the weapons. Iran hasn't even gotten to the best stuff yet. They have missiles right now that are very advanced, very accurate, very lethal. And this is part of their plan. Now, when we speak of deterrence, they didn't deter Israel, but you know who they're deterring right now? The United States. You see, you asked me the question about what is Trump thinking? America doesn't want to lose a war.
Right.
We're not stupid. Maybe we are, but on that, the Pentagon planners, when we initiate something, it's not on a hope and a prayer. When we initiate a military action, especially one of the level of war with a nation, we plan on winning. So if we're going to start it, we have an idea how we're going to finish it. There's a reason why we started forming up military government units in 1942 in anticipation of the fall of Germany in 1945, because we knew we were going to win this war. It was never in doubt. We knew what we needed to have happen. We knew what we were going to do. We had a plan. It doesn't mean that war isn't hell. You fight battles, you lose people. But we knew we were going to win. I can tell you that in, was it 2020 that the Global Hawk, or 2019, the Global Hawk was shot down by Iran over the Strait of Hormuz. And Donald Trump was desperate to go in and bomb Iranian air defense sites. And he ordered the strike package. It was ready, but at the last minute, it got canceled. Why? Because the Pentagon briefed him and said, if you do this, then the Iranians will retaliate. Begin a tit for tat thing that'll eventually result in the Strait of Hormuz being closed, Saudi oil fields ablaze, oil prices out of control, and we don't have the military capacity in the region to win this thing. They will hit us with their missiles. We're going to lose the bases, lose men, lose aircraft, and now we're in for the need to mobilize America. That means we're going to have to get like 700 to 900,000 troops mobilized, bring them over under hostile conditions. We may not win this war. So let's not bomb that site. And so they pulled back.
So do you think
I think the
now we're
president's
in that same?
I think we're in the exact same situation today. The only difference is back then we didn't have a viable nuclear war plan for Iran. But because of that weakness there, the president ordered a new nuclear posture review, which led to a new nuclear employment guidance and a new nuclear employment plan that has an annex for Iran that speaks of what we need to do with nuclear weapons to win the war. Because no military person wants to be able to go to the president and say, we don't have a plan to win. Now we do. We have a plan to win. And Trump approved it. That's why I keep telling people, be very careful, because this is a madman, literal madman. And he ordered a plan in his first term that still exists today. And that's a plan to have a war-winning strategy against Iran using nuclear weapons. We can't beat Iran conventionally. This B-2 fantasy about going over and dropping, it's not going to do it. And the Pentagon's saying, if you engage in this, Mr. President, you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve. The Iranians are therefore going to hit all of our military bases. Worse, though, we've withdrawn our military assets, for instance, from Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. I think those planes are in Saudi Arabia right now. I thought Saudi Arabia wasn't involved in all this, but apparently our planes are all in
Saudi Arabia. Yeah.
Which means Saudi Arabia is going to get flattened. Kuwait's going to get flattened. The United Arab Emirates is going to get flattened. And now prices go through the roof. And what do we have? We don't have the time. We can't wait 9 months to build up 700,000 troops that we don't have. So we nuke them. That's the problem. In the past, Iranian deterrence, the threat of this massive disruption, was sufficient to hold the hand of the madman. But now the madman is looking at options. They're saying, we can win this. What the
So
Pentagon
you
now needs,
actually think that, the dropping a nuclear bomb on Iran could be an actual possibility here?
we're over 50% on that possibility. It's a probability now. This is the most,
Oh, wow.
again, do you want to
Interesting.
know why I took the aggressive stance I did? Because I knew that I was going to get a lot of people angry when I said that, because I know the outcome. This is why I told the
I
Iranians,
mean, the thing
don't,
is, we know, for example, the United States, obviously the only nation that has ever actually used its nuclear weapons. So that's definitely a fact. So I guess you could say because of that history, knowing that they have done it, they could do it very well again. But they also
no, it's
know
beyond,
how
it's more,
devastating it is.
we have, devastating. We don't care. We have a doctrine. We moved away from deterrence only nuclear strategy to preemptive use of nuclear weapons in a non-nuclear. But that's our official policy. It's been put on paper, approved by Congress, and it is automatic. Just so your audience understands how serious this is. Last year, the Biden administration was prepared in September to sign off on allowing long-range missiles, American ATACMS missiles, to be used by Ukraine against Russian targets. And the British had come in with a similar approval package to let the Storm Shadow be used against strategic targets in Russia. There's a meeting, I think it was going to be on September 13th, where Biden and the White House Starmer came over. He was going to sign off on the documents. Long story short is the Russians let it be known through a variety of means, including the ambassador of Russia to the United States, Anatoly Antonov, making a phone call, that if they did this, Russia would retaliate and Washington, D.C. would be one of the targets. That's like end of the world kind of stuff. So Biden backed down. But later on in November, they made that authorization, November, December. There was a briefing given by the director of plans for Strategic Command, a Navy admiral in Washington, D.C., where he said, we are ready to have a nuclear exchange with Russia. We're ready, and we believe we'll win. Okay. And this isn't just rhetoric, because then I went and met with members of Congress, and I met with a very senior Democrat who said he received the briefing from the CIA. Because I said, do you think the Russians are bluffing? Does the CIA believe the Russians are bluffing? And he said, no, I was in that briefing. He said, the CIA doesn't believe the Russians are bluffing. Actually, they believe the Russians are very serious about using nuclear weapons if this happens. We've crossed all their red lines. He said, the problem is the Biden White House was ready to go to nuclear war. The Biden White House said, okay, let's do this. We were ready to go to nuclear war in December. Very dangerous situation. That's how unstable America is when it comes to nuclear weapons and our nuclear doctrine. That's why Tulsi Gabbard did what she did. She just went there and visited. She came out and she made a public statement. Trump is so mad at her right now because what she's saying is, morally, we can't consider. She's a brilliant person, by the way, and a very moral person. And she's come. I know people disagree with her because of her Israeli stance and all that. I'm just telling you, what she did was an act of great courage, because she knows
Right.
the debates that are taking place inside about using nuclear weapons, et cetera. And she came out and she made it a moral argument. And, now she's injected that in there, and maybe people will be able to pressure this madman. But without that kind of action, we'd nuke Iran in a moment. I mean, that's
And
the problem.
right. And I guess the issue here as well is going into nuclear warfare would end up being devastating, not just obviously, for the country that gets bombed, but also for the initiator. And I really think, given everything that's happened, the US probably will not want all the heat from taking such a move because it's the absolute worst. So I guess
Wait
the
a minute,
reason why I'm
you're thinking
asking that
like
as well.
you're thinking like a rational person. Who's the president of the United
I
States?
mean, yeah,
And
That
would
is
you
true,
apply the
that
term
you're absolutely
rational
right in
to
that.
Donald Trump? And look at the people he surrounded
The
himself
reason I
with.
say that too is we have seen though that Trump has shown a certain because a lot of people would have said if he was, if he had completely lost his mind, he would be like, "All right, let's attack Iran now." What's happening though, and it's maybe because of the people around him or, what the intel he's receiving, the advice he's getting, he has calmed down a bit and he's taking a little bit more of a calculated stance. Perhaps what he's doing now is trying to kind of play that psychological war of playing it and seeing what reactions are coming out from Iran and elsewhere. But he could be even more, irrational if he wanted to. But it seems to me that he is kind of holding back because he does know the consequences of what this could really mean for America and for Americans.
Problem right now, isn't one of what's good for America or good for America. He doesn't care. What he cares about is his legacy and his standing with his base. The MAGA movement will turn on him like it's never turned on anything because he promised peace. He promised that he
Exactly.
would be the peace president, that he would avoid this very thing. And now, when you have your own director, it'd be one thing if Tulsi Gabbard saying Iran has a nuclear weapon, then he has political cover. I believe Tulsi Gabbard. That's what George W. Bush said. Well, I believe the intelligence I was given. You knew it was a
Right.
lie because you told him to lie, but at least the Americans are going, it ain't the president's fault. He was fed bad intelligence. Well, Tulsi Gabbard's saying they don't got a nuclear weapon. So the only intelligence he can fall back upon is Israel. And I don't care how loyal you are to this president. When you're told we went to war because of Israeli intelligence, when our intelligence officer said no, that's it for you politically. It's over. So that's what's holding this president back is the political calculation of the price he'll pay with his base if he were to go to war.
Do you think then, and this is the regime change kind of conversation,